All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Going to be getting into my Week 14 first look build, kind of touched on my favorite core plays and values, and then showing you guys what I'm looking at for my first look here on DraftKings. So I do want to go ahead and start off with the running back position here, guys, and it's going to be simple to kind of just go with a few of the studs that we are getting on this slate. That being said, the value isn't ideal necessarily on the slate where we're getting a lot of like sub 4K receivers or even tight ends that we can feel confident that we can be on. Like we don't have Tommy Tremble on the slate. We don't have David Moore on the slate, kind of like we did last week, that were kind of easy free values, if you will, which might make it a little bit difficult, but you guys will see it is going to be pretty easy to get someone like Saquon Barkley into your build, which obviously in this matchup against the Carolina Panthers is going to be a spot that we should be attempting to get to. I don't know if I necessarily need to touch on this too much. He's going to get 20 opportunities in this game. The only concern that could potentially happen is if the Philadelphia Eagles blow out the Carolina Panthers too much and it's just Jalen Hurts getting 2 rushing touchdowns again, something like that, or passing touchdowns instead. And then that 9K price tag that Saquon has, he's not going to be able to pay off. But I do think we're going to get 100 total yards out of him. We're going to get around 20 opportunities. Just a simple, easy click there. Other running back plays that we could be looking at, I think Alvin Kamara is certainly going to be the next best option. Taysom Hill is going to be out, unfortunately for him there, which means we are going to see a lot more usage go to Alvin Kamara. That's kind of the nice part about Taysom Hill being off the field, is that we know what to do. It's going to be more of a traditional offense, and so with it being more of a traditional offense, we're going to expect Alvin Kamara to have a little bit more touchdown equity there with Taysom Hill off the field. So we're going to be looking at Alvin Kamara there next. That being said, we could continue to go down this list, guys. Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams is certainly going to be interesting. Kyren Williams played 67% of the snaps last week, which for a normal running back, for any other running back, we'd be pretty happy about, especially getting at 7.3 in a phenomenal matchup here, going against the Buffalo Bills, who, although they just dominated in their last game, they did get beat up via the run game. Now, you would contribute a lot of that to the weather conditions, but still, some people will probably be hesitant to play Kyren Williams this slate and this week because Blake Corum did get more involved. But you got to remember, Kyren Williams still looked like a stud in that game. He still had 16 opportunities in that game as well. And although he still only saw 67% of the snaps, maybe that ended up being a good thing because we saw the more explosion plays being there for him. So if we're locking in a guy in a great matchup, still getting 70% of the work in a pretty good offense, I'm still happy to get there with Kyren Williams. Now, we might not have to do that because there are some other options that we could potentially be looking at. I think one of the more obvious ones is going to be Tony Pollard, who as well saw 70% of the carries in last week's game. Now, that was Tajay Spears getting back healthy again after getting healthy, playing a game or two, and then getting a concussion, having to sit out. Tony Pollard still saw 70% of the snaps. And maybe it was because of Spears, not being fully ready to go just yet. I doubt it. I think that was more a case of Tony Pollard has been pretty darn good thus far this season. And now he gets a really great matchup here going against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's going to be someone I'm looking at in GPPs. Tyrone Tracy Jr. ended up playing around 70% of the snaps there as well. He also gets a pretty good matchup there going against the Saints. More of his GPP play, but one play that I think could actually be a sneaky good potential cash play if you need to get there and GPP play is DeAndre Swift, who also saw about 70% of the snaps last week after Roschon Johnson left the game. He ended up playing 64% or so on the week last week, but after Roschon Johnson left the game, it was DeAndre Swift. And I think that's important to call out. Roschon Johnson going to be out in this game. And so if we get Swift in a seemingly good matchup, a team that just got tore up against the Buffalo Bills and the Niners, playing around 70% of the snaps and now not most likely losing out on goal line work, to me, that's pretty big. And so Swift at 5.7, getting around, let's say, 15 opportunities, I think that's pretty encouraging to me. And I do think we need to just pay attention to the Raiders situation. If we get news that Zamir White and Madison are still out, Abdullah is still going to be a fine option. He's still going to get involved in the passing game. Not a terrible value play at that price tag. And then I guess it's worth calling out, you could take a stab at getting Isaac Orendo right. Like he will be the RB1 here, most likely for the Niners. I don't see anything else happening. But remember, we did see Patrick Taylor go out and have a pretty decent game against the Seattle Seahawks when they're in a somewhat similar situation. So I do think it could end up being more of a 50-50 split. And maybe Patrick Taylor, who would have to get signed, I don't know if that's been confirmed just yet. I am recording this on Monday night. And maybe he gets 40% of the work. Like that could end up happening. And I think it's worth calling out, like, guys, I'm a Wisconsin Badgers fan. Like Gorendo was like the RB3 and RB4 for the Wisconsin Badgers in college. Now, I think we know why. He was behind a lot of talented players, Braylon Allen being one of them. Actually, Jonathan Taylor, if we go back far enough. But Grendo didn't look bad. I mean, he ran the offense. He was good in the system. And so, someone we should be looking at GPPs there as well. And so now we go ahead and jump on into the receivers. And I think the receiver position is a little bit like the Houston situation that we had last week, where I kind of mentioned I like the idea of getting to Nico Collins. I like the idea of getting to Joe Mixon. Just how much will that correlate together in a good build? That ended up working out last week, having those two together in a build. They both put up 20 fantasy points. I could see that happening again with Saquon Barkley as well, because Dallas Goedert is currently banged up, and if Devonta Smith sits as well, we should be seeing A.J. Brown get peppered with targets in this game as well. And if that happens, he could easily go off. Now, I don't know if we necessarily need to get there. I do feel more comfortable getting to the running backs, because while we have Justin Jefferson, a little bit cheaper, who's been playing about 100% of the snaps, he gets a great matchup there against the Atlanta Falcons. I think we can expect him to get around 8 targets in that game, around 100 receiving yards. Drake London is someone that I've struggled to get to in cash, and he's basically worked out for people, but at the same time, the players that I've been on a little bit lower have been producing as well, so it's kind of been a push there. But Drake London, he is playing a bunch of snaps, ended up with 16 targets in that game, going against the Minnesota defense that has been struggling thus far this season in terms of stopping opposing receivers. And so with that, I do think Drake London at 6.4 is something that we should be looking at this week. That being said, we are getting some decent sub 6K plays as well, to the point where I don't know if we necessarily will need to do that. Like Khalil Shakir, he didn't have to do much in his last game. And if Keon Coleman is still out in this game, I think Khalil Shakir instantly becomes a great cash play. Just the target should be there for him. And we don't have to worry about the weather being cruddy and really affecting the nature of who we want to be on in that game. No pun intended there. That's normally I do the puns on purpose. That was not intended there. But from there, guys, Calvin Ridley is someone that's playing about 100% of the snaps as well. 7 targets last week. Didn't really do much in that game last week. Westbrook-Ikhine continued his weird touchdown streak that's been going on. You would expect that to come to Calvin Ridley's way eventually here. And against the Jaguars, a team that's been terrible, I could see that happening this week. But at the same time, we are getting Jacoby Myers at such a cheap price tag. For a guy, we're basically getting Devontae Adams, honestly. I tweeted this out on an Underdog reply. I got a bunch of likes, so it must be true, right? That's how that works. But I think it is. Jacoby Myers playing 90% of snaps, basically never leaving the field, gained a heavy target share, and he went off in some difficult matchups against Denver. Now, if you guys, I had the Monday Night Football game on there. It's on right now as well. Jerry Jeudy's going off against that Denver defense. That's going to skew the data a little bit. But that Denver defense is difficult. KC defense difficult. Miami defense also somewhat difficult. He actually only had 8.8 points in that game, but consistently dominating since Devontae Adams has been gone. Hasn't really cared who the quarterback is as well. And so we're getting a guy that's been a nice, safe floor at such a cheap price tag. And to me, that's a little bit too cheap. I honestly don't understand the pricing for Jacoby Myers. Just shouldn't be that cheap. And so from there, this is where it does get a little bit difficult to me, because we have a lot of players that I could say are good options. Like you could try to get lucky with Westbrook-Ikhine. Trey Tucker is playing a lot of snaps, but the targets are a little bit random with him. Wendell Robinson, cheap price tag for a guy that should get more targets. Parker Washington is a guy I'm honestly kicking myself about not being on last week. It was more they hadn't been giving him the snaps. The snaps have been going down, and I was frustrated. I'm like, I don't really understand this. He's clearly talented. And really, I just gave up on him a week too early. Last week, he ended up playing 81% of the snaps, had the most targets on the team, 12 targets. There's a lot of tweets going out about how Brian Thomas should have had a big game, and he should have. I mean, Mac Jones missed him a couple of times on some big plays, but Parker Washington did end up having a big game. 6 receptions, 12 targets, 103 receiving yards, and a touchdown. And it's not shocking. If you guys have followed Parker Washington, he's kind of a slightly worse version of Christian Kirk, who obviously injured for the Jaguars there. And then I do think going to like David Moore, who's 4K as a receiver, I'm okay with that, but I don't think we need to go out of our way to do that just yet. So with that, guys, let's go ahead and jump on into the tight ends. And tight end wise, if you want to pay up for Brock Bowers, you certainly can. If you want to pay up for Trey McBride, you certainly can. I actually think George Kittle is going to be fine. He's going to bounce back this week as well. Obviously, the weather conditions just not good for fantasy production, especially in the receiving game. TJ Hawkinson played about 65% of the snaps. It was Johnny Munn actually having I believe he had a touchdown. Let me just double check that. Yeah, having a touchdown. If you give that to TJ Hawkinson, I bet Hawkinson's price tag bumps up even higher. And so the thing with TJ Hawkinson is he's still working he's back from injury. He's good to go, but snap count wise, he's still working himself back from that. And so I think if he would have had that touchdown last week, we would have been getting him at like 4.8. And so I still think he's a nice, solid floor option for us at a cheap price tag. Like, we're getting one of the best tight ends in the league at 4.3. That's insane to me. Now, that being said, we do have Dallas Goedert's backup tight end in a great matchup here at 3.5. Now, he really hasn't been able to do much, but again, if Devonta Smith is out, we're probably looking at him, but realistically, I think that just makes us want to load up on Saquon Barkley a little bit more. And then we are getting some okay values. If Sanders is still out for Carolina, I think Tommy Tremble is still going to be a quality option there as a value play. But really, I think a sneaky good value play is going to be looking at the New York Giants. Theo Johnson's going to be out. Sad, some of that was actually starting to catch on there. Maybe a good dynasty kind of ad. I don't know, maybe. But Daniel Bellinger is going to be $200 above the min price, and we're not asking for much. But if we can get that exact same production that we got out of Theo Johnson, which is about 6 fantasy points per game at 2.7, I'm kind of okay with that. It's ugly for now. We're probably going to adjust that. Probably don't need to get there, but I'm fine kind of clicking them in there. So with that, guys, let's go ahead and get into the quarterbacks. And the quarterbacks to me are a little bit tough because if we are paying up for the running backs, we're not going to be able to afford to pay up for Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, two of the best options on the slate pretty clearly. I do think we can easily stack Sam Darnold with, let's say, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. You could do Sam Darnold and TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson or something like that. Heck, maybe even Aaron Jones gets a touchdown and doesn't fumble twice in the game, which limited his snaps last week. So I'm fine with Sam Darnold, but at the same time, I do feel like he's priced up just slightly too much. You know, if that Niners team truly has given up, maybe Caleb Williams goes out and has a good game. Since the new offensive coordinator has taken over, he's had 16, 29, and 26 points. The one thing I'm concerned with is that we didn't see any design rushes from him last week in that short week. And I think that could be why. It was a short week for a rookie quarterback. I think that's why we saw just the Bears offense really just struggle in the first half. Kind of a primetime game for him as well. That is just tough to adjust, and especially for that offensive coordinator. Now, the issue is I'm pretty sure that offensive coordinator is now the head coach, which is terrible, I think, because now you're just adding on another thing onto his plate. I saw it as a rumor. I haven't confirmed that just yet. So, but if that's true, like, that's actually more of a negative to me. But still, Caleb Williams, certainly a GPP option. You could easily play him with, let's say, Keenan Allen and or DJ Moore. They're both playing about 100% of the snaps, both getting a heavy target share. Actually, that'd be a pretty good stack there. We could stack Kirk Cousins in. I don't know if you want to call it a revenge game, but going against the Vikings, you could easily stack him with Drake London there. But really, I'm probably going to get ugly here, guys. I'm probably going to go either Will Levis in a great matchup there against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know it's ugly, but you could easily stack him with Calvin Ridley, who, I think will have a good game. Will Levis has been better recently, hitting those deep balls. He's taking a lot of deep shots. We're not asking for a lot. We're asking for about 15 fantasy points, and I think he will be able to 3x at that price tag. And also, Aiden O'Connell, guys. Aiden O'Connell, it's kind of ugly. I get that, but at 4.8 to get Aiden O'Connell in a great matchup, they're going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's a little crazy to me. And you could easily stack him with Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, who both get good matchups. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at on this slate. 4.8 for him, Jacoby Myers at 5.6. And then you could pay up for Brock Bowers. He's probably properly priced, but I would argue Aiden O'Connell and Jacoby Myers both a little bit too cheap. Both shouldn't be that cheap. And so DST-wise, I don't really care right now. It's a little bit too early on in the week. You know, once some injuries come, we'll be able to adjust for that. And then receiver-wise, 4K left over. Kind of shrug my shoulders, close on my build, and I'm going to end up on, let's go with David Moore for now. Kind of okay with that. Obviously, we'll figure that out more as the week progresses. But that's going to be all for you guys. Typically, I would show you guys what the 9-to-5 lineup builder is telling us is going to be the optimal lineup, but because I'm doing this video on Monday night instead of like Tuesday afternoon or evening, I'm not going to do that. I'll probably cover it at some point. We'll see, maybe in a core plays video. But that's going to be all, guys. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. That does help out a lot. Comment your guys' favorite play. If there's something you slightly disagree with, let me know. If there's something that you really love, also let me know in the comment section below. That does help out the channel and does help out the video a lot as well. All right, guys, that is going to be all for this video. Make sure to give a like and subscribe. If you guys want access to the 9-to-5 lineup builder or any prop tools that are available on the website, check it out, guys. All the tools are available for just $10 a month. Thank you guys for watching. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.